Rita Franklin's day began like any other in her quiet suburban life. The sky blue SUV she drove eased into an empty parking space outside the local grocery store. Rita, a woman in her 30s with light brown hair and striking green eyes, stepped out of the car. She wore blue slacks and a matching blue and white blouse, her outfit complementing the serene hue of her vehicle. With purposeful steps, she made her way to the store entrance, a to-do list neatly written on her lap. Inside the store, Rita's buggy filled up quickly as she efficiently gathered items from the shelves. Her mind flickered with the tasks ahead, mentally checking off each item on her list. Husband off to work, children off to school, go to bank, dry cleaners, and groceries. She murmured to herself, the rhythm of her day unfolding in her mind. As the SUV came to a stop at an intersection on Rita's journey back home, she reviewed her list once more, scratching out completed tasks with satisfaction. The car was soon filled with an abundance of groceries, bags occupying every available seat. Driving through a pleasant, middle-class neighborhood, Rita's eyes settled on a charming two-story brick home perched atop a small hill. The SUV pulled into the driveway, and Rita retrieved her house key from her purse. With a swift motion, she opened the back door of the vehicle, only for a cascade of groceries to spill out onto the driveway. A can of beans rolled down the hill, prompting Rita to scramble after it, her blue slacks gathering dust and grass stains in her pursuit. After a brief but comical chase, she retrieved the rogue can and carefully loaded the groceries back into their respective bags. Balancing her final two bags, Rita wrestled with the SUV's door before closing it with an awkward jolt. She marched back towards the front door of her home, her pace quickening as she noticed a mail truck approaching her mailbox. "Wait just a second, will you?" she called out, a sense of urgency in her voice. Hurrying inside with the groceries, Rita then dashed back out towards the mail truck, letters in hand. However, the oblivious mail driver, lost in his own world of music, drove away before Rita could catch his attention. Frustration welled up inside her, and she tossed the letters into her mailbox, raising the red flag in annoyance. Returning to her house, Rita opened the front door, only to be greeted by her energetic dog bursting out. The small, light-colored dog with unusually short hair darted across the driveway, nearly knocking Rita over in its excitement. "Shag, get back here!" Rita exclaimed, her voice a mix of exasperation and fondness. She chased after her furry companion, crossing the street and finding him relieving himself in a neighbor's yard. Before she could intervene, the irritable homeowner, a cranky old man, appeared and directed his frustration at Rita. "Hey you! Your stupid mutt thinks he can fertilize my yard again. I told you to keep him off my lawn," he barked, pointing accusingly at Shag. Rita hurriedly scooped up Shag, apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry, he just—" The neighbor cut her off with a warning. "Oh, you'll be sorry when I call the pound next time." With that, he retreated into his house, leaving Rita standing in her driveway with Shag in her arms, a mixture of relief and annoyance evident on her face as she made her way back inside her home. The afternoon sun streamed through the kitchen window as Rita Franklin stood at the counter, unpacking her groceries. Shag, her excitable dog with short, light-colored fur, darted around the room in pursuit of Buffy, a fluffy white cat that often tested his patience. Rita chuckled at their antics, a familiar scene in her bustling household. Buffy, feeling mischievous, leaped onto the counter, her fluffy tail swishing back and forth. In a moment of chaos, she knocked over a pickle jar with a careless flick of her paw. Rita's reflexes kicked in as she performed a small acrobatic feat, catching the jar mid-air before it could crash to the ground. She shot a disapproving glance at the mischievous cat, who promptly jumped off the counter and darted between Rita's legs. Shag, never one to miss a chance for excitement, bounded after Buffy. In his enthusiasm, he collided with Rita, causing her to stumble backward. Miraculously, she maintained her grip on the pickle jar, saving it from a messy demise. "This is ridiculous!" Rita exclaimed, a mixture of exasperation and amusement in her voice as she watched Shag and Buffy disappear down the hallway in a blur of fur and playful energy. Taking a moment to compose herself, Rita placed the rescued pickle jar in the refrigerator before turning her attention to the dishwasher. She closed it with a decisive click and started the cleaning cycle, the hum of the machine blending into the background of her busy household. With determination, Rita returned to her tasks, pulling warm clothes out of the dryer and folding them with practiced efficiency. She moved on to vacuuming the living room carpet, the familiar whir of the vacuum cleaner filling the air. As she worked, She stole glances at the books neatly arranged on the shelves, a sense of satisfaction washing over her as she admired the organized space. Despite the chaos caused by her playful pets, Rita found solace in the rhythm of her daily routine. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the windows. The school bus rumbled to a halt at the corner of the street, releasing a cacophony of excited voices as several children spilled out onto the sidewalk. Among them were Rita Franklin's 4 kids: Trace, a 12-year-old boy with tousled brown hair and bright blue eyes; Amy, his bubbly 6-year-old sister; Courtney, a thoughtful 9-year-old with a penchant for books; and Remy, the mischievous 6-year-old youngest sibling. As the siblings made their way home, their chatter filled the air, blending with the sounds of laughter and occasional scuffles. Trace led the group towards their house, the familiarity of the path ingrained in their routine. With practiced ease, he unlocked the front door and held it open for his siblings to enter. "Mom, we're home!" Trace called out as he stepped inside, his voice echoing through the cozy hallway. Rita Franklin, their mother, was busy in the kitchen, her attention focused on the oven. She turned around with a warm smile as her children entered, a mitted hand reaching out to retrieve a tray of freshly baked cookies. "Hey, Mom!" Amy exclaimed, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the treats. Rita set the cookies on the counter, the aroma of chocolate filling the kitchen. "So, how was school?" she asked, her gaze shifting from one child to another. Courtney's expression darkened as she recounted her day. "Awful. Miss Simpson doesn't like me," she confessed, her frustration evident. Rita took the crumpled paper from Courtney's pocket and read the disappointing grade. "An F because she doesn't like dogs? That's unacceptable," Rita declared, her protective instincts kicking in. Courtney pleaded with her mother not to confront the teacher, but Rita's resolve was firm. "Something has to be done. I won't stand for an undeserved F on your report," she insisted. Turning to Remy and Trace, Rita inquired about their days, receiving nonchalant responses about substitute teachers and mundane school activities. Amy, meanwhile, proudly showed her mom a drawing of their family, eliciting a smile from Rita despite the minor mishap of Amy burning her fingers on a hot cookie. As the conversation shifted to school and future plans, Trace expressed his weariness with the educational system. "I'll sure be glad when I turn 16 so I don't have to keep going to school," he remarked, his tone tinged with teenage disillusionment. Rita chuckled gently. "You could, but then you'd be stuck flipping burgers all your life. And that would be pretty miserable, wouldn't it?" she teased, trying to lighten the mood. Placing a reassuring hand on Trace's shoulder, Rita offered words of encouragement. "Take heart, son. School doesn't last forever," she reminded him, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. Just then, the phone rang, shattering the tranquility of the kitchen. Rita's expression shifted from warmth to annoyance as she picked up the phone. "Hello, Mother Franklin," she greeted, her tone polite but tinged with irritation. "Yes, we're good. How are you?" she continued, listening intently to the voice on the other end. As the conversation progressed, Rita's annoyance grew more apparent. "This weekend?" she repeated, her brows furrowing slightly. "No, sure, I guess you could come and spend the weekend with us," she relented, though her reluctance was palpable. A series of questions and remarks followed, each one eliciting a response from Rita that ranged from reluctant agreement to thinly veiled frustration. "No, I didn't give him the lemon and honey. I gave him some NyQuil and it worked very well," Rita explained, her patience wearing thin as she defended her choices. The conversation continued in a similar vein, with Rita fielding inquiries about Jerry's health, work, and various other topics. She tried to maintain a polite demeanor, but her annoyance was evident in the way she tersely answered each question. Finally, as the call seemed to be wrapping up, Rita's demeanor softened slightly. "Okay, we'll see you then," she said, a hint of resignation in her voice. "Okay, oh, here's Trace," she added, handing the phone to her son as she walked away, grateful for the brief respite from the somewhat exasperating conversation. Jerry stepped through the front door of their cozy home, the scent of familiarity mingling with the evening air. Dressed in his airport security uniform, he looked weary but content as he greeted his wife, Rita. She rushed towards him, embracing him warmly. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" Rita inquired, her voice filled with genuine concern. It was fine, same as usual. Yours?" Jerry replied with a nonchalant shrug, his eyes scanning the room for a moment before settling back on Rita. Busy. Oh, and your mother is on the phone, Rita added, her tone indicating a touch of weariness. Jerry sighed softly, his footsteps leading him towards the kitchen where Trace had the phone in hand. He took the receiver, bracing himself for the conversation. Hi, Mom. No, we don't really have plans for this weekend. Sure. No, I didn't take the lemon and honey. No, Rita has been taking care of me just fine. All right, just drive safe and we'll see you then. Love you too. Okay, bye. Jerry relayed the details of the call, his expression a mix of duty and resignation. Later that night, Jerry sat on the bed in their bedroom, engrossed in some papers. Rita emerged from the bathroom in her nightgown, her hair cascading down her shoulders as she brushed it gently. Is it your time of the month again? Jerry asked, glancing up from his papers to meet Rita's gaze. Rita nodded, a hint of frustration in her eyes. Guess you better take your witch pills. I'm actually out. Need to get more soon, Rita admitted, her voice tinged with resignation. Jerry put down the papers, concern etched on his features. Honey, you know how you've been getting the last 2 months around this time. You've been acting a little strange, doing some strange things. You've been a lot more sensitive about the little things. Rita placed her brush on the dresser, her emotions bubbling to the surface. Well, you've got a lot to say about something you don't understand. Just think of swallowing 10 hard-boiled eggs whole and then drinking 3 gallons of water straight, then clipping a clothespin down there and see how it feels. Jerry face-palmed, trying to maintain composure. That's why we started you on those pills. They're helpful. No, they're not, Rita retorted, her frustration evident. If it's really bothering you, why don't we make an appointment with Dr. Griffin? Jerry suggested, trying to find a solution. I don't need a doctor. I need a break. I need a break from the kids, pets, from all this, Rita confessed, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Jerry reached for Rita's hand, offering comfort. Well, Christmas leave is coming up in a few months. Maybe we could get away for a little while, have some quality time to ourselves. I'd like that if I can make it through these 3 months. You know I don't like it when your mother comes to visit, Rita admitted, her frustration simmering. Oh, honey, my mom isn't that bad, and she hardly comes over anyway, Jerry defended his mother, trying to ease the tension. Rita, however, couldn't contain her frustration any longer. She picked up a pillow and tossed it at Jerry, her emotions reaching a breaking point. She comes every month, like clockwork, and she complains about every solitary thing. Don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. I raised Jerry better than you raise your kids, just on and on. I wish she would keep her crooked nose out of my life sometimes, Rita vented, her words fueled by pent-up frustration. My mother does not have a crooked nose, Jerry interjected, his tone firm. Yes, she does. It crooks like she wrapped it around a pole and did an awful job at it, Rita countered, her irritation palpable. You shouldn't talk about my mother like that, Jerry chided gently, trying to diffuse the situation. Well, you should tell her to stay at her place and not bother us every month, Rita exclaimed, her emotions raw. Honey, can you calm down? You're making this bigger than it really is, Jerry urged, attempting to soothe Rita's frayed nerves. I told you, Einstein, I need a break from everything and everyone. I just do, okay? Rita's voice wavered with emotion as tears welled up in her eyes. I'm really sorry. I just can't get off until Christmas. I've already used up my leave time to go to your sister's wedding. Your mother insisted we stay 2 weeks, Jerry explained, his own frustration mounting. Rita sat down on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face as she expressed her longing for respite. Well, that's only because I never get to see my family. Your crooked-nosed mother keeps barging in every month. Hey, your mother can come anytime she wants, Jerry countered, trying to maintain peace. Yeah, but if she did, you'd probably be eager to show her out the door, Rita accused, her emotions raw. My mother's come a few times, right? I've always acted like a perfect gentleman to her, Jerry defended himself, feeling the weight of the argument. Just forget it, I'm tired, Rita sighed, her energy drained by the emotional exchange. The couple lay down on the bed, the tension hanging heavy in the air as they tried to find solace in sleep. Jerry turned off the light, hoping to bring a sense of calm to the room. However, a few seconds later, Rita turned the light back on, her frustration still palpable. No, I won't, Rita exclaimed, her emotions still running high. Jerry let out a frustrated sigh, covering his face with a pillow as the weight of their unresolved issues weighed heavily on both of them. The psychiatrist's office hummed with a subdued energy, the air heavy with the weight of unspoken fears and hidden struggles. Jerry sat in the waiting room, his gaze drifting from the red-haired woman nervously fidgeting to the elderly man fixated on his own foot, and the woman whose tears seemed never-ending. He sighed, feeling the weight of his own worries pressing down on him. Amidst the quiet chaos of the waiting room, a visibly shaken and distraught man emerged from the long hallway leading to the psychiatrist's office. His gray suit and pink shirt attire contrasted sharply with the somber atmosphere of the office, adding to his air of nervousness and frustration. He sauntered towards the waiting room, his demeanor reflecting a blend of anxiety and desperation. "Mr. Onaka, I've scheduled your next appointment for Friday. Would that work for you?" The receptionist inquired, her voice calm and professional. Onaka paused, his eyes darting around the room before responding in a hushed tone. I guess so. I'll be there if they haven't killed me yet. They're going to kill all of us, you know." The receptionist sighed, a hint of weariness in her expression as she flipped through the appointment book. "Martians again, Mr. Onaka?" No, not the Martians. Dr. Martin dealt with them last week," Onaka clarified, his voice tinged with urgency. "So what is it then?" the receptionist pressed, her curiosity piqued. Onaka leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper as he confided, "It's the Russian caterpillars. They change into poisonous butterflies. They're everywhere and they're coming for me." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, clearly perplexed, but maintaining her professional demeanor. "Well, how does Friday at 2:30 sound?" Yes, that's fine. If I'm still alive. We're all in danger. Did you know they can transform within 30 minutes and devour us all?" Onaka's voice rose with a mix of fear and desperation. "All right, I've got you put down for Friday at 2:30 p.m., the receptionist confirmed, jotting down the appointment in her book. Jerry observed the interaction with a mix of concern and curiosity, his attention drawn to the man's delusional outbursts. As Onaka finally left the office, Jerry felt a wave of relief wash over him, grateful to be spared from the man's intense paranoia. "Mr. Franklin," the receptionist called out, pulling Jerry's attention back to the present. "Yes," Jerry replied, his voice tinged with apprehension. "Dr. Martin will see you now. Please follow me," the receptionist instructed, leading Jerry down the familiar hallway towards Dr. Martin's office. The room exuded an air of calm professionalism, with a brown leather sofa against one wall and other furniture typical of a therapy or psychiatrist's office. Dr. Martin greeted Jerry warmly as he entered, the door closing behind them, shutting out the noise of the waiting room and enveloping them in a cocoon of confidentiality. Jerry settled into the comfortable chair across from Dr. Martin, the subdued ambiance of the psychiatrist's office lending a sense of seriousness to their conversation. Dr. Martin, a distinguished man in his 60s with glasses perched on his nose and clad in a dark blue suit, exuded an air of calm professionalism as he regarded Jerry. "I appreciate you fitting me into your schedule on such short notice," Jerry began, his voice betraying a hint of anxiety. Dr. Martin nodded in understanding. "Well, you seemed rather concerned, so you've been having suicidal tendencies, I understand." Jerry shook his head. "No, not me, it's my wife, Rita." Dr. Martin's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? I mean, not necessarily. She's just been acting a little crazy lately," Jerry clarified, choosing his words carefully. Dr. Martin leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Mr. Franklin, I don't use the term crazy. Stressed or mentally distraught would be perhaps more accurate. So tell me, what exactly has she been doing lately that makes you believe such a thing?" Jerry sighed, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I really don't know where to start. Let's start with some facts, shall we? Tell me about your family," Dr. Martin suggested, guiding the conversation to gather more context. Jerry settled back in his chair, gathering his thoughts. "Well, Rita and I have been married for about 14 years now. We have 4 great kids. We've been a pretty average and normal family until recently. I enjoy my work, and Rita's been a good wife and mother." Dr. Martin nodded, encouraging Jerry to continue. "So, what exactly changed?" he inquired gently. Jerry hesitated before responding. "Well, a lot changed recently." "How recently?" Dr. Martin prompted, seeking specifics. 2 months ago, I guess you could say it was an event. It happened during her monthly cycle, Jerry explained, trying to convey the complexity of the situation. Dr. Martin raised an eyebrow. I assume you mean her menstrual cycle? Yeah, and a little before that too. You know, PMS and that stuff, Jerry replied, his discomfort evident. Mr. Franklin, after 14 years of marriage, surely you would be understanding of a woman's difficulties, Dr. Martin remarked, a hint of amusement in his tone. I know, but the last few months have been just traumatic for me, Jerry admitted, his voice filled with a mix of frustration and concern. Dr. Martin almost chuckled at Jerry's choice of words. All right, tell me what was so traumatizing to you. And so, Jerry began to recount the events that unfolded on a particular Friday, delving into the details of Rita's behavior and the impact it had on their family dynamic. Rita's day seemed to be spiraling out of control as she pulled into the gas station, her mind preoccupied with a myriad of thoughts. Fumbling through her purse, she absent-mindedly reached for the diesel pump instead of the regular one, her actions reflecting her distracted state. Realizing her mistake, Rita hung up the pump and headed over to the station's counter to pay for the gas. Little did she know, this minor mishap at the gas station was just the beginning of a series of unfortunate events. As she continued on her journey, the engine of her car began to emit smoke, a foreboding sign of trouble ahead. Rita's eyes widened in alarm as she pulled over to the side of the road, the smoke billowing from under the hood. With a sense of urgency, she got out of the car and lifted the hood, only to be met with a thick plume of smoke that engulfed her face and hair, leaving her covered in black soot. In a fit of rage and frustration, Rita kicked the front tire of her car, unleashing a comedic twist as the tire suddenly went flat, adding insult to injury. As she stood there, her emotions running high, a wrecker pulled up to her car, coming to her rescue in this moment of automotive distress. The wrecker driver backed up skillfully, hooking up Rita's car to tow it away from the roadside ordeal. Smoke still billowed from the hood as the wrecker made its way to Rita's house, coming to a stop in front of her driveway. Rita, still wiping the soot off her face, stepped out of the wrecker as the driver unhooked her car. "Can you send me the bill?" Rita asked, her frustration evident in her tone. "Sure, ma'am," the wrecker driver replied, reaching for a clipboard. "Just sign here." Rita signed the paperwork hastily and stomped towards the front door of her house. Once inside, she made a beeline for the bathroom, eager to wash off the remnants of her tumultuous encounter with her car. The water cascading over her face and hands served as a soothing balm to her frayed nerves, providing a moment of respite amidst the chaos of the day. As Rita bustled around her cozy kitchen, the aroma of meatloaf wafted through the air. She deftly placed the pot into the oven, closing the door with a gentle clank. Her hands moved with purpose as she fetched a bunch of fresh vegetables from the fridge, giving them a thorough rinse in the sink. Just as she finished her culinary preparations, the shrill ring of the phone pierced the tranquility. Rita's expression soured slightly as she picked up the receiver, already anticipating the caller's identity. "Hello, Mother Franklin," Rita greeted, her tone polite but tinged with reluctance. "This weekend, I don't know. Yes, I understand how much you love to see the kids, but I guess it would be all right. Okay, we'll see you then. Bye-bye." As she hung up, a wave of frustration washed over her features, her brow furrowing in annoyance. However, her momentary peace was shattered by the sudden entrance of her daughter, Courtney, into the kitchen. "Mom! Mom!" Courtney's voice was urgent, carrying a hint of distress. Rita turned towards her daughter, concern flickering in her eyes. "What's wrong?" "It's the neighbor, Mr. Barnes," Courtney exclaimed, her words tumbling out in a rush. "He just gave shag to a guy in a white truck. I tried to chase after him, but I couldn't catch up." Rita's eyes widened in disbelief, her initial frustration now replaced with a fierce anger. Without hesitation, she marched over to the stove and oven, swiftly turning off the burners and shutting down the heat. Snatching her purse from the countertop, she declared, "This day just gets better and better. Let's go." With determination etched on her face, Rita and Courtney hurried out of the house. Trace rides up to the house on his bicycle. "Where are you going, Mom?" Trace asks. "We'll be back soon, son. Take care of Amy and Remy." Rita gets in her car and cranks it up. It chokes multiple times before finally turning on. Rita wipes her brow in relief as she and Courtney drive off. The sun was dipping below the horizon as Rita navigated her way back home from the local pound. Beside her sat Courtney, cradling Shag in her lap. The car rumbled into the familiar driveway, protesting with a near-death sputter as Rita turned off the engine. Doors creaked open, and before they could fully step out, Shag darted away, making a beeline back towards Mr. Barnes's house. "Shag, no, come back here." Courtney's plea echoed in frustration as Rita muttered under her breath, "Dang it, Shag." Their footsteps quickened as they rushed after the runaway pup, their emotions a mix of anger and annoyance. They finally reached Mr. Barnes's yard, where Shag was once again causing mischief. Courtney scooped up the wayward dog just as Mr. Barnes stomped out of his house, his face twisted in annoyance. "I told you what I'd do the next time your mutt defecates on my yard. Get him off my property." Rita bit back her initial response, forcing a strained smile. "It won't happen again, Mr. Barnes." They made their way back home, the tension still palpable in the air. "I can't believe Mr. Barnes, he's awful," Courtney vented. "I know. I have a lot of things to say to him, but now isn't a good time. Just try to keep Shag on a leash from now on, okay?" Rita advised. "Okay, you're right," Courtney conceded as they approached their front door. However, their return was met with an unexpected sight. Smoke billowed out from the kitchen, instantly setting off alarm bells. "What?" Rita exclaimed, her heart racing as she sprinted towards the source of the smoke. Inside the kitchen, chaos reigned. Trace, Remy, and Amy were frantically trying to contain a fire that had erupted from the forgotten pot of meatloaf in the oven. Rita wasted no time. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from a nearby cabinet and doused the flames with a spray of foam. "What exactly did you do?" Rita's frustration was evident as she surveyed the scene. I'm sorry, Mom. We were outside playing. I didn't know there was anything in the oven," Trace stammered, looking sheepish. Rita sighed in exasperation, instructing the kids to leave the smoke-filled kitchen. As she opened the windows to let the smoke escape, Courtney emerged from the living room, having just put down the phone. "Who'd you call?" Rita inquired, her worry mounting. 911, like you taught me," Courtney replied, her eyes widening as she noticed Rita's expression. "Oh no." Rita's concern deepened. Minutes later, the wail of sirens pierced the air as fire trucks screeched to a halt in front of their house. Nearby, Jerry, Rita's husband, had just turned the corner and was met with the flashing lights. "What on earth?" Jerry exclaimed, his concern evident as he hurried towards the chaos unfolding at his home. Rita spotted him and rushed over, their embrace a mix of relief and worry. "Everything's okay. It was just an oven fire." "Are the kids okay?" Jerry's first question was about their safety. "They're fine. I sent them to the backyard," Rita reassured him. As the firemen assessed the situation and gave their verdict of minimal damage, Jerry breathed a sigh of relief. All right. Let's all just settle down. We're all okay, and that's what matters." With the fire contained and the house ventilated, the night settled into a semblance of calm once more, the family gathering in the living room as they reflected on the unexpected events of the evening. Dr. Martin sat in his office, his gaze shifting from the clock back to Jerry. "In fairness, Mr. Franklin, everyone makes mistakes. I don't see this as being a problem worthy of great concern," Dr. Martin remarked, trying to reassure his patient. "That's where it started. It gets worse. Much worse," Jerry replied with a somber tone, his eyes reflecting the weight of his experiences. Dr. Martin nodded, encouraging Jerry to continue. "All right, tell me what happened next." Jerry leaned back in the therapy chair, gathering his thoughts as he delved into the next chapter of his tumultuous journey. "Well, it was the next day, before I went to work." The soft hum of the vacuum filled the living room as Rita meticulously maneuvered the machine across the carpeted floor. Sunlight streamed in through the windows, casting a warm glow over the space. It was a typical morning, with the mundane chores of everyday life unfolding seamlessly. Jerry descended the stairs, his figure clad in the crisp uniform of an airport security guard. With a gentle smile, he approached Rita and planted a kiss on her cheek. She paused her task, switching off the vacuum, but her expression was far from serene. "What's wrong, honey?" Jerry inquired, concern knitting his brows as he noticed the tension in her demeanor. Rita took a deep breath, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. "Jerry, I'm seriously discontented with my life, and I feel like I'm going crazy," she confessed, her voice tinged with exasperation. "Your mother is an absolute pest. She keeps calling and calling just about every day. I'm sorry to say this, but the happiest day of my life will be when I go to her funeral. I'm so sick of her." Jerry's eyes widened in surprise, taken aback by the intensity of Rita's words. Before he could formulate a response, their golden retriever Shag bounded into the room, his tail wagging in anticipation. Rita's frustration seemed to extend even to the dog as she glared down at him. "What do you want? Get out of here!" Rita snapped at Shag, her irritation palpable. Shag let out a soft whine before slinking out of the room, sensing Rita's displeasure. She pointed after him, her tone aggressive. "I have to vacuum every day because of that darn dog shedding every single day. The neighbor's been getting worse every day too because he keeps pooping in his yard. I just can't take this anymore." Jerry stood there, momentarily stunned by Rita's outburst and the avalanche of grievances she had just unleashed. The weight of her dissatisfaction hung heavily in the air, casting a shadow over the otherwise peaceful morning. Dr. Martin sat straight in his chair, his expression thoughtful as he processed Jerry's recounting of the events. "Sounds like she was quite upset. Makes sense after the stress of the previous days," Dr. Martin remarked, his voice calm and analytical. Jerry shifted in his seat, his eyes clouded with concern. "She went on to rant about how if I didn't get rid of the dog, she'd have his legs amputated." Dr. Martin's eyebrows shot up in surprise and he leaned forward in his chair, his curiosity piqued. "That's a bit extreme of a response, especially since she just rescued him from the pound." Jerry shook his head, a mixture of frustration and worry evident in his demeanor. "Anyway, I thought it was best to leave her be and let her cool down. Besides, I was already late for work too, so I left for the day." "How was she when you came back?" Dr. Martin inquired, his gaze fixed on Jerry as they delved deeper into the aftermath of Rita's outburst. "Well, she seemed to be in a better mood. That was good," Jerry replied with a hint of relief. "Unfortunately, I came back to quite a situation." Dr. Martin leaned in, his interest clearly piqued by the impending revelation. "She didn't amputate the dog's legs, did she?" Jerry let out a nervous chuckle before continuing, his tone growing more serious. "Not quite, but..." The evening settled over Jerry's house as he wearily stepped through the front door, his fatigue from a long day at the airport evident in his posture. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, hoping for a moment of relaxation. Rita emerged from the laundry room, a basket of clothes nestled in her arms. Her demeanor caught Jerry off guard. She seemed unusually happy, a stark contrast to the frustration and discontent she had expressed earlier. "Are you feeling any better?" Jerry asked, a glimmer of hope in his voice. "Oh, absolutely, much better. How was your day?" Rita replied, her smile genuine as she set down the basket. Not too bad," Jerry shrugged, still processing the sudden change in Rita's mood. "Where are the kids?" "They're staying over at Louise's house. Don't worry, relax, I'll be back in a minute," Rita reassured him before heading upstairs. Left to his own devices, Jerry picked up a newspaper from the coffee table and began to peruse the headlines. Unbeknownst to him, Shag, their golden retriever, shuffled into the living room. Jerry's attention was only caught when he noticed something amiss about the dog. With a double take, he realized that Shag's hair had been completely sheared off, leaving him entirely bald. Shock and horror flooded Jerry's expression as he let out a scream. "Rita!" Jerry's voice echoed through the house as he raced upstairs, desperate to find answers. He burst into the bedroom, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on one of his uniforms. To his disbelief, it was covered in Shag's hair, as were several other pieces of clothing. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks, and he called out again, his voice filled with a mix of shock and outrage. "Rita! What the heck, Rita? What did you do to Shag? And why is his hair on all my clothes?" Rita finally emerged from the bathroom, a smile playing on her lips, though there was an underlying tension in her expression. She grabbed a pair of pants from the bed and tossed them at Jerry, her voice laced with frustration as they launched into an argument that echoed through the house. Dr. Martin's office was bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun filtering through the blinds. He sat across from Jerry, his expression a mixture of shock and surprise as he processed the details of Jerry's tumultuous experiences. "So, did she give any reason for doing that?" Dr. Martin inquired, his curiosity evident. Jerry let out a sigh, the weight of the situation still fresh in his mind. "She said she was tired of vacuuming up Shag's hair. She wanted me to feel how it felt to be swimming in it. Not that that makes any sense. Dr. Martin shrugged and shook his head, empathizing with Jerry's confusion. Were there any other events that took place after that incident? A few minor ones that month, but the next month, oh boy, it was a real pain. And I mean literally, Jerry replied, his tone tinged with a hint of resignation. Dr. Martin leaned back in his chair, prompting Jerry to continue with his narrative. Go on. One of the pilots that I'm friends with, his daughter has a cat that had a litter of kittens. Our youngest Amy has been begging for a white cat for a long time. So when we found out they wanted to give the litter away, I thought it would be a good idea to get her a kitten, Jerry explained, a faint smile crossing his lips at the memory. Dr. Martin nodded, finding the gesture endearing. So you got your daughter a kitten. Sounds nice. What went wrong? Unfortunately, the one Amy wanted thought it had 9 lives. Jerry's voice trailed off, his expression turning somber as he prepared to delve into the next chapter of his family's journey. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue over Jerry's neighborhood as he maneuvered his car into the driveway. It had been a long day at the airport, and all he wanted was to unwind at home. However, fate had a different plan in store. As Jerry carefully steered his car into the narrow driveway, a flash of white darted across his path. His heart skipped a beat as he slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision with the white cat that had chosen that precise moment to sprint across the driveway. Panicked, Jerry quickly turned off the ignition and rushed out of the car, scanning the area for any sign of the cat. His relief was palpable when he spotted the feline sauntering towards him, completely unfazed by the near miss. The cat, seemingly oblivious to the chaos it had caused, approached Jerry and rubbed against his leg, purring contentedly. Jerry shook his head in disbelief, a mixture of amusement and exasperation evident on his face as he scooped up the cat in his arms. As he made his way towards the front door, Rita swung it open, a warm smile lighting up her face. "Hi, honey," she greeted, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Hey, I found Amy's cat," Jerry replied, his tone a mix of relief and amusement. "Buffy's still playing cat and mouse with the car tires. Try not to run her over." Rita nodded in understanding, a chuckle escaping her lips. Dr. Martin leaned forward, his expression reflecting a mix of concern and curiosity as he delved deeper into Jerry's narrative. "How many times did this happen?" he inquired, his voice steady. Jerry shrugged, a sense of weariness creeping into his posture. "Probably a dozen or so. I knew Amy would be heartbroken if her cat got ran over." Dr. Martin furrowed his brows, his thoughts processing the situation. "So why didn't you just keep the cat inside the house?" he asked, genuinely curious about the decision-making process. "It was Rita's idea to have a doggy door in our kitchen for Shag," Jerry explained, a hint of frustration lacing his words. "Our backyard has a fence around it, so he couldn't get out. But Buffy was way too agile. She'd get through it and climb up the fence all the time. And whenever she would hear a car pull up, she would climb over and tempt fate once again." Dr. Martin nodded in understanding, though he couldn't help but comment on the situation. "Well, that's a very poor habit," he remarked, his tone tinged with concern. "Yeah, about that." Jerry trailed off, his expression growing serious as he prepared to unveil another layer of the complex dynamics within his household. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over Jerry and Rita's suburban neighborhood. Rita's car rolled into the driveway, the engine humming softly as she brought it to a stop. Amidst the peaceful evening, a loud meow echoed in the background. But Rita appeared unfazed as she gathered her bags of groceries and stepped out of the vehicle. As Rita made her way to the front door, the faint sound of Buffy's distress lingered in the air. Unbeknownst to Rita, she had accidentally run over the cat's tail with her left front tire. A brief moment of realization swept over Rita, prompting her to return to the car and rectify the situation, freeing Buffy as she re-entered the house, shaking her head at the incident. Inside, Jerry lounged on the sofa, having just arrived home himself. His attention was momentarily captured by Buffy's playful antics with Shag, their energetic dog. However, a subtle detail caught his eye. Something seemed off about Buffy's tail. He dismissed it initially, assuming it was a trick of the light, and turned his attention back to the television. The next day arrived, bringing with it another episode in the ongoing saga involving Buffy's tale. Rita pulled into the driveway once more, the familiar meow accompanying her arrival. Ignoring the sound, she entered the house, her mind occupied with the day's tasks. Later in the evening, Jerry returned home, parking his car behind Rita's in the driveway. As he approached the front door, Buffy dashed by, engaged in a playful chase with Shag. This time, however, Jerry couldn't ignore the obvious. Buffy's tail appeared extremely wide and flattened, a stark deviation from its usual appearance. His eyes widened in surprise as he stepped into the house, his mind racing with questions. Inside, the family gathered around the kitchen table, preparing to enjoy dinner. Rita brought a plate of biscuits to the table and settled beside Amy. It was then that Jerry walked in, Buffy cradled carefully in his arms, her tail now resembling that of a beaver. "Rita, what on earth happened to Buffy's tail?" Jerry's voice carried a mix of disbelief and concern as he confronted his wife. Rita, however, shrugged her shoulders nonchalantly, her demeanor unconcerned. Her tail got ran over a couple of times. Nothing I could do about it," she replied casually. Jerry was dumbfounded, his gaze shifting between Rita and the injured Buffy in his arms. With a sigh, he gently set Buffy down, his eyes narrowing as he glared at Rita, silently questioning her lack of concern for the family pet's well-being. "What? She'll be fine," Rita remarked, her tone dismissive as she continued with the evening's meal, seemingly unfazed by the ordeal. Dr. Martin's office was a haven of calm amidst the bustling city outside. The soft glow of the afternoon sun filtered through the windows, casting a warm ambiance over the room. Dr. Martin took off his coat and hung it on the coat rack. Rolling up his sleeves, he poured some water into a glass and handed it to Jerry, who sat across from him, still in the midst of recounting his tumultuous tale. "So, how did that make you feel?" Dr. Martin's voice was calm and inviting, encouraging Jerry to delve into his emotions. Jerry took a sip of water, his expression reflecting a mix of discomfort and unease. "It was pretty disconcerting," he began, his voice carrying the weight of his experiences. First shaving Shag, then Buffy's tail, but it didn't stop there. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over Jerry's suburban neighborhood as he arrived home from work. Pulling into the driveway behind Rita's car, he noticed a familiar sound that sent chills down his spine. Buffy's whining and painful meow. Without hesitation, Jerry stepped out of his vehicle and leaned around Rita's car, his heart sinking as he confirmed his worst fears. Buffy's tail was once again trapped under Rita's left front tire. With a mixture of disbelief and frustration, Jerry quickly backed the car off the poor cat's tail, freeing her. Buffy, her tail flattened and extremely wide, limped away with a pained expression. Exasperated and filled with a mix of anger and concern, Jerry stormed into the house, shedding his coat as he went. Rita, who had just come down the stairs, met his glare with a nonchalant expression. "Rita, you had to have seen you ran over Buffy's tail again. How could you let her stay like that?" Jerry's voice was filled with a mixture of accusation and distress as he confronted his wife. Rita shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. "Buffy needed a lesson. I bet she won't ever run under a moving car again," she remarked, her tone oddly satisfied. Jerry was completely dumbfounded by Rita's response. He lifted his hands in the air out of frustration, shaking his head in disbelief at the callousness of her actions. The soft glow of the afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Dr. Martin's office as Jerry poured out his frustrations, his voice tinged with worry and disbelief. "My goodness, is the cat still alive?" Dr. Martin's question cut through the tension in the room, prompting Jerry to provide an update on Buffy's condition. "Somehow, yes," Jerry replied, a hint of relief in his voice. "Besides having a beaver tail, she seemed mostly okay. I just can't believe Rita let that happen over and over. She really has a grudge against Buffy." Dr. Martin glanced at his watch, signaling the end of their session for the day. "Well, Mr. Franklin, I'm afraid our time is up for today. If you'd like, I could schedule for you to come in again next week," he offered, preparing to wrap up their conversation. Jerry shook his head, a sense of urgency in his tone. "But what about my wife? It's getting close to her time of the month again, and there's no telling what she's going to do next. What do I do?" Dr. Martin raised his hands in a nonchalant gesture, attempting to reassure Jerry. "Like I said, we'll have an opportunity to further discuss this next week," he replied calmly. Feeling the weight of his concerns pressing down on him, Jerry persisted. I appreciate that and all, but you've got to give me some advice. My mother is coming to visit today, and I guess I'm just real nervous about Rita, that's all. Dr. Martin nodded in understanding, acknowledging the complexity of Jerry's situation. Believe me, I can sympathize with your dilemma. However, to be honest with you, you are exaggerating the gravity of the situation, Mr. Franklin, he explained gently. It's perfectly normal for a woman to become more irritable both physically and mentally around her monthly cycle. Tell me, has she returned to, how shall I say it, normal after her cycle so far? Jerry shrugged and nodded. Well, yes, but the cycle of lunacy seems to be more often and dramatic every time. Dr. Martin shook his head, offering a reassuring smile. I feel this is just a phase you and your wife are going through. It'll soon pass and everything will be fine. But if you would like me to, I could schedule for your wife to come to your next appointment as well. My wife doesn't even know I'm here, Jerry admitted with a hint of frustration. Besides, my mother is coming over for several days and Rita absolutely hates her guts. I just don't know what to do. Dr. Martin checked his watch, signaling the end of their session once again. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin, but we really are out of time. I'm sure everything will be fine. Why don't you go home and get some rest? He suggested kindly. Jerry rose from his seat, a mixture of uncertainty and hope in his eyes. I just hope you're right and it's just a phase. I've been in this business for a long time, Mr. Franklin. And believe me, it is. Dr. Martin reassured him with a confident smile. Jerry returned the smile, albeit faintly, as he waved goodbye and left the office.